This morning we received a report from Judge Louis Freeh, and we'd like to thank Judge Freeh for his diligence in uncovering the facts over the past 8 months and for issuing such a comprehensive and thorough report today.
I'm sorry to say I found that there were some fundamental flaws with the treatment of Mr. Paterno. I found the report to be inaccurate in some respects, to be speculative and unsupported by the record that was compiled in the course of preparing the report, and in short, fundamentally flawed with respect to the determinations made as to the role, if any, that Mr. Paterno played in any of this.
From our initial review, it's clear that Judge Freeh has delivered a comprehensive account that provides needed clarity for our university. And on behalf of Penn State, I thank him and his team for their professionalism and hard work.
That the effort was one that was incomplete, one that was truncated, one that left a lot to be desired when it came to getting to the basic truths involved in the activities that took place here, with regard to Mr. Paterno in particular.
The process that we just underwent with Judge Freeh leading it was critical for all of us if we're to move forward. We needed to understand what happened, to hold the appropriate individuals responsible for their actions and their failures to act, and identify the changes that need to be immediately addressed in our university community.
Our team conducted over 430 interviews of various individuals. I did the first one myself the day before Thanksgiving, and the last one on Friday.
But I don't matter how many people you interview, if you're not talking to the right ones and getting the right material, then you're going to have a flawed investigation.
I think it's pretty clear now, with the 267-page report that's been issued, that Judge Freeh followed the facts. That's what's important. He followed the facts to their logical conclusions.
To allow some people saying, well, we know that Joe Paterno could get anything he wanted at Penn State, to trump the facts, I just don't think is a responsible conclusion. Again, I'm not impugning the motives of the people who did the Freeh report, but I don't think their conclusions are based on the facts. I think they're based on suppositions, on a conspiracy theory, on assumptions. That's not the way this should be decided, in my judgment.
Our most saddening and sobering finding is the total disregard for the safety and welfare of Sandusky's child victims by the most senior leaders at Penn State. The most powerful men at Penn State failed to take any steps for 14 years to protect the children who Sandusky victimized. Mr. Spanier, Schultz, Paterno, and Curley never demonstrated, through actions or words, any concern for the safety and well-being of Sandusky's victims until after Sandusky's arrest.
Our administrative leadership also failed. Judge Freeh's report concludes that at the moment of truth, people who are in a position to protect children and to confront a predator, including people at the highest levels of responsibility in the university, specifically Graham Spanier, Joe Paterno, Tim Curley, and Gary Schultz, did not put the welfare of children first.
In this case, I have, in reviewing the Freeh report, not been able to persuade myself that Joseph Paterno did anything wrong. And even if he could have done more, and we can all do more, I certainly haven't seen evidence that his actions were based on selfish motives or some disregard for the well-being of children in the community.
The evidence found by our investigators included critical, contemporaneous correspondence from the times of these events. Our investigative team made independent discovery of the critical 1998 and 2001 emails, the most important evidence in the case.
Another thing that stood out was the interpretation of some of the communications. For example, the 22701 email from Curley, the misinterpretation of that created the appearance that there was a conspiracy involved when you actually look at that in context with the other emails and documents around that same time period, that conspiracy completely crumbles. There is nothing there. When I read the conclusions in the Free Report and then looked at the report and went through it word by word, line by line, there is no support for the conclusions that he made that there was actually a conspiracy.
Taking into account the available witness statements and evidence, it is more reasonable to conclude that in order to avoid the consequences of bad publicity, the most powerful leaders at Penn State University, Mr. Spanier, Schultz, Paterno, and Curley, repeatedly concealed facts relating to Sandusky's child abuse from the authorities, the Board of Trustees, the Penn State community, and the public at large.
That some people, in a particular instance, because they wanted to avoid bad publicity, might have concealed the criminal acts of Jerry Sandusky.
No one has said that Joe Paterno was afraid of bad publicity. That motive is just vacuous. It's not there, and it was a wrong conclusion on the part of Free.
We understand that the answers cannot come quickly enough for all concerned. And I assure you that Judge Free and his team are moving as expeditiously as possible. But we will not sacrifice thoroughness and completeness for expediency.
There was an enormous buildup of pressure to get this job done and to hold culpable people who were thought to be involved in any wrongdoing. And oftentimes that produces a result that outruns the record. That I mean to say, here you've got a record developed through document reviews and interviews and all of the laborious detail that was set forth in the report. And it simply falls short of sustaining the allegations that were set forth in the report. And the only explanation I can think of for that is that there was just a rush to injustice.
We received a report, and there's been lots of suggestions that we've accepted all 267 pages. That's not accurate at all. We did not take any action on that Free Report. It's open for anybody's interpretation.
Of course, the Free Report was commissioned by the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees accepted that report. I would say that doesn't necessarily mean that members of the Board of Trustees agree with every aspect of the report, but we certainly agree with the recommendations of the report and are moving ahead very swiftly to implement those recommendations.
Did you or the Board of Trustees discourage the NCAA from relying on the flawed Free Report as the foundations of the sanctions against Penn State University?
At that time, there was little else to go on, and faced with a very difficult decision, we said that we accepted the Free Report for the purposes of that consent decree. We had little that we were able to negotiate, if you will, in terms of the NCAA sanctions. We were not in a negotiating position, and the NCAA had made that very clear to us.
Did you or the Board of Trustees suggest to the NCAA that it conduct its own independent investigation that would have afforded Penn State University its full due process rights to challenge any findings or sanctions brought forth by the NCAA?
They certainly had that authority to continue. They simply relied on the Free Report.
But you or the Board of Trustees did not suggest to the NCAA that it conduct its own independent investigation. And is it standard practice across the country for the NCAA to simply accept an internal report by a member institution?
It's fairly typical that universities will conduct their own investigations, yes.
Was it a case for Penn State basically sign that document accept what we are telling you are the penalties, or there will be a death penalty of multiple years.
And no, it wasn't that at all. There's been some significant confusion,
Rod Erickson
I think,
pretty well
about that.
suggests that, though, doesn't he?
Well, you'll have to talk to President Erickson about that. But the fact is that we, when I say we, I mean myself, the executive committee, and the D1 board. So this is a group of more than 20 people. The death penalty was unequivocally on the table. It was widely discussed. There was a lot of sentiment that that ought to be one of the variables in a package of penalties. It was never a consideration that it would be by itself. We made clear that we had really two options in front of us: to go down this road, this consent decree model, or to launch a traditional investigation, and the time and energy, of course, that would consume for all parties with an unknown outcome.
Is there any information available at this time on the cost of that investigation?
We'll be putting out some information on the web perhaps as soon as the latter part of next week on that, Ann, not just on the investigation, but the various costs, and keep you informed about that.
How much has the university paid the law firm for its services?
We'll have a detailed accounting of that at the next report on the Progress website, but it's something in excess of $6.5 million.
A special investigative committee of the Board of Trustees at Penn State hired the law firm of Free, Sporkin and Sullivan to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the university's actions in the Sandusky scandal. Are those deliberations and actions of the special investigative committee, are they subject to the open records law?
I'm not sure about that. I think there was relatively little deliberation that took place in that committee. The committee, in fact, received the report at the same time that the public did.
Can you provide the committee with the executed contract between the Board of Trustees and the law firm?
I will look into that and certainly try.
We do not intend to do an independent review.
And can you explain why you don't think that's important?
Because that's actually not part of what we commissioned the report for. We commissioned the report so that we could have a set of recommendations for how we could improve our governance.
Have you or the Board of Trustees determined whether or not the Free report fulfilled the scope of its contract, and is the contract complete?
The Free report provided us with 119 recommendations that were directed toward improving our processes, toward improving safety on campus, toward improving governance and administration. We have been very hard at work really over the course of the last 14 months to review and implement those recommendations, and there's a full accounting of that on our Progress website. To date, we've implemented about, or have continuously ongoing, about 80 of those recommendations. There are probably 4 or 5 of them that we do not intend to implement because we don't feel that they're appropriate to us. But over the course of the remainder of calendar 2013, our goal is to fully implement the recommendations of the Free report.
And we look forward, as time goes on, to having that investigation completed with respect to those issues that led to these tragic events that we know so much about. Let me be absolutely clear. An event like this can never happen again in the Penn State University community.
Blaming it on the culture of football or some kind of conspiracy when in fact it is the fact that we are not educating ourselves as to what real offenders do, what real victims act like, and how they use the dynamics of grooming to get access, authority, and control over children. If we don't learn those things, if we don't change our perspective as a country, we are going to continue to let people like Jerry Sandusky offend decade after decade after decade.